The only reason that I'm a Division One football player is because I understood these four concepts, and now I'm going to be teaching you the exact step by step process through guiding you through my journey and every single thing that I learned along the way so you can do the exact same thing and go become a Division One football player. So let's get into it. The first thing I learned was relentless ownership. So really, my sophomore year, I was at Green Bay Southwest, and I would blame everyone else for my mistakes, not their mistakes, my mistakes. If I didn't hit the hole right, I would say it wasn't blocked right. If I missed a tackle, I would say a safety should have been there for a vice tackle. I wouldn't take ownership for the shortcomings I had. I thought it was everyone else's fault that I wasn't succeeding. And really, it was good enough to get by. Like I was all conference. I was an all conference running back. I was an all conference linebacker as a sophomore, right? That's something. Really isn't shit when you're trying to go D1 and you're trying to be a top 1%er. Because I did understand this though. I was a big fish in a small pond. I understood, right, being all conference against a competition I was playing against really did not mean anything and that it wouldn't get me to my goals of playing D1. It simply wouldn't. So, really, we made a drastic decision. Me and my family decided, let's go to IMG Academy. This is going to be the right spot for me. The problem was, though, it didn't feel like it at first because the first game I went to, I missed five tackles. Five tackles. I don't think I missed five tackles in my entire sophomore year at Southwest, and I missed five in just the first game here. And really, it hit me like a brick because I didn't know what I was doing at that point. I had so many doubts come into my mind. I thought maybe this was the wrong decision. Maybe I just wasted thousands of my parents' dollars that they've been working hard for. Maybe I'm not really a D1 football player. Maybe I'm a D3 football player at best. These are all the thoughts that came into my mind because I absolutely got showed up in my first game. Not only that, I missed an assignment for a touchdown, and we got absolutely destroyed this game, not necessarily because of, right, everyone else, but I personally did not do my job this game. I didn't do anything that I should have, and it really hurt the team, and it was that reality check for me. It really was. And at that point, right, it was tough. And I had doubts in my mind for a couple days, but I really decided to stop sulking by the end of that week. And I understood, right, I needed to take accountability for literally everything in my life. Everything. It didn't even have to be related to me, but I needed to take accountability for what was going on. So with that, what I would do, even if something wasn't necessarily going perfect, I would take blame for it. I would take blame for what was going on, even if it wasn't 100% my fault. I was just like, at this point, if I'm not going to get the results, right, it's my fault. I have to take ownership and understand everything is in my control. That's one of the biggest things I've taken away on my journey going D1. Everything is in your control. And simply, if you're not D1, you're not good enough, right? You think you're too slow, you're undersized. Well, if you were a baller on the field, if you had 200 tackles in a season, I bet you'd be D1. It doesn't matter how small you are. If you could ball like that and you had 200 tackles against some good competition, I bet you would be D1. And it's not because you don't have the exposure. You're simply not good enough. If you were good enough, if you were a 5-star or that caliber player, it would take 3 coaches to see your film and you'd have 3 offers, right? That's all it is. So I started to take that exact mentality into everything in my life. And this would eventually lead me to unfathomable amounts of work, but I still didn't understand this yet. There were still some growing pains I had to go through. And that leads me to figuring out some unbreakable systems. So, right, these growing pains were I was going to leave IMG. I decided I was going back for spring. That's what I was going back home. That's what made the most sense for me and my family. That meant I was losing access to top tier coaches and the resources they had there and I started to slip. I started to slip the last few weeks I was there because, right, we had just won a state championship. The team we had was pretty good, and I did decent that year. Wasn't Things got a little better after that first game from that ownership I took, but still wasn't where I wanted to be. In that last couple weeks, when I was at IMG for about 3 weeks with no season, we didn't really have coaches breathing down our neck, and I'd still show up to get extra work, but it wasn't the quality and intent that I knew it needed to be. I knew there was more for myself, but I couldn't figure it out yet. Like, I would just show up at the gym, I just do some bench press. I didn't train legs at all for those 3 weeks, and I kind of just mess around with my friends. But that's not the standard of going D1. So, right, I went home, I realized that, and I realized that I wasn't going to have all those resources that even my teammates would have, the competition would have. So I really took that relentless ownership into action, and I started doing crazy things. I started just doing absurd things. It's like 20 degrees here. There's snow on the ground, right? I'm in 5 shirts here. I have a shirt as a ski mask, and I'm doing some work with this bag. Like, I'm doing some man-to-man work, working some catch man technique on a goddamn bag, right? I don't have a person to do it with me. I'm all by myself. My mom was out here watching me. That's all I had. I took that relentless ownership because I decided I was going to leave no stone unturned for my senior year and my goal to try to go D1. So with leaving no stones unturned, I spent 150 hours to build a system to take me to the next level. Yes, 150 hours. I studied multiple books, triphasic training. I studied that religiously, like it was my job, like my life depended on it, because my vision of going D1, my dream of going D1, it did depend on it. That's how serious this was. I had to be an absolute killer, spending nights till 11 or 12 p.m. looking at this goddamn book because I was going to figure it out for myself. I didn't want to work with someone. And was that to my detriment? Probably. I probably should have worked with someone my junior year. Going into it, that would have helped me a ton. But now I understood, if I'm not going to work with someone and I'm back at home from IMG, I'm taking that relentless ownership and I'm spending 150 hours to figure it out. And that's exactly what I did. I figured it out. I spent 150 hours doing that, studying everything, and my results simply skyrocketed. Because when you spend that much time and you care about something, the results are gonna pay off. And I started to use a system that made sense. This offseason, obviously I'm looking a lot bigger here. I gained 20 pounds of lean mass while dropping 0.3 seconds off my 40, 0.35 off my 40, or my 5:10.5. So that was a 4.05. My 40 was a 4.6 while getting a ton stronger. I just had a crazy transformation, but still, I had a difficult time showing up every day. So I still left gains on the table that I could have gotten. There was still more I needed to learn. Even though I made progress, it wasn't done. It wasn't done. And that leads me to leveraging small wins. So really at this point, I was really output oriented because I was seeing success in the off season, right? I wanted to chase the milestones, the offers, the awards, the PRs, right? I was seeing a lot of PRs because I found a system that worked. So I was like, let's keep riding it. But the thing is, it's not going to always be a straight linear uphill battle. You're going to take 3 steps forward and you're going to take 2 steps backward. How are you going to take the next 3 steps forward? It's not just going to be straight like this. Your journey is going to be followed with ups and downs, but we just want that trend to be going upwards. And I didn't understand that yet. I was just taking every one of those highs, and that's exactly what I wanted. But the problem was, the more I achieved, the more empty that I felt. I had the success. I had what people wanted. I went to IMG Academy. I left my hometown, and people, right, I got resentment for it, but people believed in my vision. At least I thought people did. I'm sure some people didn't want me to succeed. They wanted to see my downfall, right? I knew people that were believing in me. I knew my parents believed in me, but I didn't believe in myself at this point. And every achievement I got just made it worse. Then the thing is, I end up building the non-negotiable threes, right? So that's a workout, a meal, and an action every single day, right? We look at this. This is the action. It's less than 30 degrees. This is my garage. This is my old car here. And I'm sitting in this water that's just a couple degrees over freezing. I think on this day it was 37 degrees. Typical ice baths, they don't get to 37 degrees. Why don't you try it and you'll see really how tough it is? But what I would do, I would wake up before school every morning and get in this ice bath. Every single morning that entire winter without fail. Right? I could have slept in until 6:45, gone to school at 7:30, but I was waking up at 6 a.m. every day to stretch and then get in the ice bath. That's exactly how bad I wanted at this point because right, I had built on that ownership, so I was going to make sure everything was in my control. I had a system of waking up on time, waking up at 6 a.m. every day to stretch, then ice bath, then shower, then eat, and leave. That was my system that got me there. Then after school, I would work out, and I made sure I had one perfect meal. I would prep my lunch every day and make sure that I was dialed in so I was getting my nutritional needs met. And it started to pay off. I earned a Division I scholarship and committed to Missouri State. This call that I got offered was probably one of the best moments of my entire life. It felt like all the work I'd been doing since really when I started playing football, 5th grade, had finally paid off. I was the first person to commit for the class, the entire class. But that fed my ego like crazy. I thought I was better than everyone at school. I really did because I was just at IMG Academy. I was at this massive prep school, and I'm back home in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Feel like I'm surrounded by a bunch of lowlifes. I just committed to a D1 school. I was the first person to commit on a full scholarship, and my ego was at an all-time high. I thought I was the absolute man, and it caused a lot of problems. I want to get into that. So really, I started to learn about some identity-based inputs. So my worth was tied to external factors, but like I didn't understand that at the point. I didn't understand that my ego was starting to get in the way. But when I lost my commitment and my relationship in the same week, I got exposed. I was midway through my senior year. I was having a solid season because I had built on those last 3 phases, but I didn't understand this yet. I was tying everything that meant something to me was because of what I had going around me externally. It wasn't who I was as a person that made me feel good about myself. It was all the things I had, the material things, and everything I had achieved that made me feel good. And I got broken up with, and 3 days later, Missouri State called me and said, "We no longer have a spot for you." And it wasn't anything I could have done, and it hurt. I got exposed, and it was the worst week of my life. I fell into a depression. I didn't leave my bed for 3 days. I was just on my phone doing absolutely nothing, just distraught because I thought this was my life. This commitment, I thought I was going to be at the school for 4 years, and I really cared about this girl that I was with, and I lost both of them in a 72-hour span. Then I decided, right, I needed to do something about this. I took that relentless ownership, and it circled back. We started to talk together, me and Dr. P. It was the first time I ever really met him, and we started to talk about identity-based inputs. And this is really where things started to take off for me. So really the biggest thing, if I can summarize in just one sentence here, it's reframing all of my actions as, is this something that the D1 version of Jacob would be doing? Is it something that the D1 version of Jacob would be doing? That is exactly what it is. So let's think about it here. If I'm done with practice and I'm not going to get extra work, I'm like, I don't feel like it today. I ask myself this exact question. Is this something the D1 version of Jacob would be doing? And the answer is no. He would be staying after to get extra work because that's simply the standard it takes to go D1. If I decided I was I hear my alarm and I want to press snooze, I want to sleep in for another half hour. I ask myself, is this something the D1 version of Jacob will be doing? And the answer is no. And that's really what allowed me to start to take things to the next level. But the thing is with that, the way to make it even more powerful is ask yourself, raise the stakes, not the D1 version of yourself. What is the NFL version of yourself doing? And then it starts to become so blatantly obvious that you don't really have free will. Nick Saban said something along the lines that when you're trying to be great, you don't have a choice. When you think about the NFL version of yourself, you really don't have a choice because you know you have to do the work, and it starts to become so obvious the work that you have to do. It becomes so obvious. It's crazy when you start to reframe your thoughts like that. Because now the D1 version of myself stays for 15 minutes after. If I ask, was the D1 version of Jacob or the NFL version of Jacob doing? He's staying 30 or 45 minutes to perfect his craft because he's not just the 1% of being D1, he's now the 1% of that 1%. It's like the 0.00 or the 0.01% or something like that. That's the standard you're now living to when you ask, is that what the NFL version of yourself will be doing? That's exactly how to make that even more powerful and become the version of yourself that you truly want to be. So now that led me to exactly where I wanted to go. Furman University, Division I school. I achieved my dream, and now I'm living the life that I wanted to. And I want to lead you to. I help athletes drop zero point 0.2 seconds off their 40-yard dash in just 90 days. And I'm sure you might be a little skeptical. That's not a problem. What I want you to do is shoot me a DM on Instagram. Let me know you watched this video. Let me know what you thought about my journey. Just being 100% completely honest with everything what happened. I want to lay it all there out there for you to frankly just build trust and maybe at some point inspire you to work with me to really help you get to that Division One dream that you have. And if not, that is not a problem because I'm just here to serve and provide value for everyone who watches my content because I don't want you to make the same mistakes I did when I was trying to go D1, and I want you to have an easier path than I did by learning from all of my mistakes and implementing what I did right into your life. So even at a younger age, or you can figure all four of these pillars out at once and actually implement it into your life instead of taking 2 years to figure this stuff out. You figured it out in this video, and that's all I wanted for you. Just here to serve. So if you are interested, shoot me a DM on Instagram. Let me know you watched the video, and we'll chat it up, see if you're going to be a great fit. If not, I'm glad I was here to serve you, and I'll see you soon.